What up, what up, what up? Football fans all over the world. It is your boy, Mac the Giants fan, here with my guy, the super dope co-host, Adam Costas. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for that real deal NFC East round up. Punch that intro. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm sorry. Just want to apologize for the technical difficulties. Just to say I'm having another day, man. You know, Matt, the Giants fan has been unlucky these last couple of weeks, man. I don't know what's going on with me. But
Mac the Giants.
Adam's here. He's gonna hold things down for me today as much as possible, and I'm gonna do my best, man. But I am shook. How you feeling today, Adam?
Well, obviously better than you right now. So I'm going to carry the show, folks, as best I can. I'm going to be the pilot. Mac's going to go over there and try to make it through the show. I admire his guts and grit. We don't take days off here unless it's on vacation. So we're here to, keep it going. And we're going to talk about the NFC East because they were in the playoffs and they are going to be representing in the championship game. So here we go. We're going to start.
Yes, sir. The NFC East will be in the Super Bowl, fellas. The NFC East was definitely representing the Super Bowl. What's going on, Alex? Thanks for stopping in, bro. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool for our show. We get to talk some NFC East football all the way through the Super Bowl, as NFC East will be represented in the Super Bowl with the NFC Championship game coming up this week. But before we get to that previewing of that game, we're going to talk a little bit about what went down this past weekend in the divisional round, man. Yes. Saturday night out in Detroit, man, the Washington Commanders went and traveled to Detroit, man, and pulled off a big upset of the number one seed Detroit Lions, man. Adam, what you think about this game, man?
I think I called it. Some people in the chat, Mets, told me I was crazy for picking the Lions. But I said, I'm riding the hot hand. I'm riding the red wave all the way to Detroit. And that's what? That wave is still going. The Lions came out there. And I said to people, I said, you know what? You don't talk shit to people you don't know, right? The Lions content creators were talking shit. They said, this is our time. Don't even bother showing up. We're punching our ticket to the NFC Championship game. Feeling very confident. That stuff tends to spread to your team. When you're hearing about that all week, when you're feeling it and you're seeing what the Commanders are doing, you're like, we got this in the bag. We couldn't have met a better matchup. Well, guess what? You met the wrong matchup because the Commanders came to play. And oh, by the way, JD5, he's the guy. He's the guy. He's him. If you didn't think he's him, this game shows you he's him. He did not get rattled one iota. They go down the field and score the Lions, and you're like, oh, man, what are we going to do here? Well, guess what? The Commanders went right back down the field and scored. Okay? Then we thought they would be a struggle, but they kept counterpunch after counterpunch after counterpunch. I think the biggest plays in the game were the Terry McLaurin touchdown. I think that was huge in the game for momentum, and that pick six, the Saratelli interception by Agent Zero. I think those two plays kind of elevated them. Why the interception? Well, guess what? You always had a lead. At that point, you were up by 10. It was 17-10 at that point. And even though the Lions came back, they countered. The Commanders kept punching back. They never let their foot off the gas. And there's one thing that Dan Quinn said to the halftime reporter. He said, yeah, we're doing well, but we're going to stay aggressive and not take our foot off the gas. And I thought, you know what? That's exactly what you need to do. You're not here to play footsie and get. You keep scoring. You score 70. You score 80 if you need to. You just keep going. You don't stop because you're up. And they had some. I got to give my hats off to Austin Eckler and the backs on the Commanders. They kept it down a distance short. Jaden Daniels made money plays when he had to on third down, made some big third down throws. Zach Ertz made some great plays. I just thought the momentum of the Lions kind of got sucked out of themselves, and they had to result in trick plays, which guess what? They worked. Jameson Williamson had a great, end around. But their first trick play didn't work. I would have probably stopped it there. If you watch what the Commanders did, their trick play didn't work on 4th and 2 in the red zone. They were trying to do a Marcus Mariota tush push like lateral to JD5, but it didn't work. And you know what they did? They scrapped it and they said, that's not what got us here. That's not what got us here. Getting cute didn't get us down here in this position. Making plays, running the football, playing sound defense, that's what got us here. And mind you, the Commanders' defense wasn't great, but they bent enough where they didn't break, that they got enough turnovers. They had 3 turnovers. I think they had 5 turnovers. If I'm not mistaken, they had a fumble and a couple interceptions. So they did what they needed.
4 interceptions.
4 interceptions. Yuck. Jared Goff. Yuck. 4 interceptions. So that's how you lose a football game. Now, again, if you watch what happened on the other side, I think the Commanders were pretty clean. I don't think they threw an interception or a fumble. They had little to no penalties. Okay, and they were not intimidated by the moment in that crowd in Detroit Field, in Ford Field or wherever they play, Mercedes-Benz Dome. I don't even know. But point is, they played there in Ford Field, and they weren't intimidated. And the Lions, I think, underestimated them. Their defense did not play as well as I thought they were going to play. They did not get the turnovers they needed. They had injuries across the board. I get it. I don't want to blame injuries for anything because that's not what was supposed to happen this game. All I heard all week leading up to it was how the Lions were going to blow the doors off this team, and they didn't even come close. It looked like and we forget, right? Because the Commanders are the 6th seed, they won 12 games. It's not like they're the 6th seed and they won like 9 games and crept into the playoffs. They won 12 freaking games, right? So, the one thing that I mentioned last week was the only thing I would say is they haven't played a big game where they sustained their winning, but I'm still going to go with JD5 in the game because I believed the quarterback was kind of going to be the difference maker on the Commander side. Well, he was efficient. He threw the ball well. There was nothing phased him. On the other hand, it looked like Jared Goff was getting off his spot. That interior pressure of the Commanders kind of moved him off his spot, so he was constantly under duress, and it showed in some of the throws he made, underthrows, interceptions, and they just didn't have the juice. And I don't know, Ben Johnson is now the head coach over in Chicago, officially announced, right? I don't know if that's played a factor into it. I have no idea, but they just looked off. And someone said, "Oh, what do you think of Dan Campbell crying on the presser?" I said, "You know why I think he's crying? Because this may be the only shot that they had at getting their Super Bowl. It is hard to win in this league and be a sustained winner. Go ask Kansas City, right? And even though Detroit has won a lot of games, they lost in the divisional round. They lost in the NFC Championship game last year. They lost in the divisional round this year. It's going to be, and now they're losing both their coordinators. Glenn to the Jets, Johnson to the Bears. It's going to be a little different for those Lions teams to sustain stuff, depending on who they bring in. We see it with the Eagles, right? The Eagles lost their coordinators, and it took them. They were not the same team the following year after their Super Bowl hangover. They were not the same team. And then this year they had to redo the coordinators again and look where they're at, right? So I think this is going to be one of those things where, especially because you're in a division with the Minnesota Vikings. I just mentioned the Chicago Bears just got their coach, right? And then you have Green Bay. And they're all kind of in that same mix of 11 to 12 wins. And then you have Chicago, that the anomaly there that they hope to turn around. So Detroit, sometimes I wouldn't say the window is closed, but sometimes you got to punch your ticket when you're there, right? And a game like the Commanders, which George was taking, and the Commanders took it to you, and they were a hot team.
I agree. You just hit on something that was like, which is about Detroit too. Like you said, it's potential that window is closing, man. There's definitely a potential there a little bit. I mean, you got to look at the division they play in, which is by far right now currently the toughest division in football, probably. Based on what we saw from those teams this year, even Chicago. Chicago, even though their record doesn't indicate a great football team, they were in a lot of football games, and they have a lot of good young talent on that football team. Now they got a coach in Ben Johnson who may be able to bring out the most in that talent. We'll have to see. We don't know how Ben Johnson will actually function as a head coach, but there's a reason why Ben Johnson was so interested in that job. I mean, look at the makeup of the Chicago Bears. So, and then also just go around the NFC in general, man. Like you look at a team like Washington, for instance. Like these are teams that are just going to continue to grow and continue to get better. This is a Washington football team that could be downright scary, and the fact that they are now one game away from being in the Super Bowl for the first time since 1992,
I think. Yeah, 92.
90.
Well, I think it was 91 because then you had the Cowboys because they went.
It was a 91 season. It was a 91. Right. The 91 season. Right. Yeah.
Just because when you look at the Super Bowls, and I'm not very good at them, I can only do from 35, but I do know that 94 is when the 49ers won, and then there was two more Cowboy wins prior to that, and then they had the 91 Super Bowl.
Yeah, the NFC East 4 years in a row.
Right.
You had the Giants, Commanders, then two back-to-back years with the Cowboys beating up on
they all played Buffalo. The golden era of the NFC.
And then you had that year in between with the 49ers, and then you had the Cowboys again.
Right, and, I remember that decade.
But this commander team, man, like you just said, Jaden Daniels, man, this is a special young man, man. It sucks because he's in this division and he's on one of the rival teams. But you know what? Hats off to the Commanders, man. Hats off to the organization, the Washington organization. They deserve this. They deserve it. It's been some very dark years in Washington throughout that entire Daniel Snyder era. You know, dark days, man, down there. And now this franchise has completely turned things around, and they got a young quarterback that demonstrates so much poise, man. Like you would have thought coming into this game that Jaden Daniels was the veteran guy and Jared Goff was the rookie quarterback. You would have thought that coming into this football game, man, on Saturday night. Just the turnovers, the mistakes that Jared Goff was making, and he accounted for 3 of the interceptions. One of them was a pick 6, and Jamison Williams threw the other one on what was another failed trick play, in which he forced the ball down the field, in which he should have really either tucked it and ran or threw it the hell away because it just wasn't there. And it goes to what you were saying about the trick plays and trying to get too damn cute. And it just ended up getting in their own way. Turning the ball over at that rate, you can't do that against a solid football team like the Washington Commanders. I mean, they've had quite an impressive season. Like you said, they're a 6th seed that won 12 games. That's not the norm. You know, in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, a 6th seed is not usually a 12-win football team necessarily. And this Commander football team is
right.
They just seem to keep finding ways to just be impressive, man. Week in, week out. Like I said, and most of it goes to that young quarterback, Jaden Daniels, man. He is just a special young man who we're going to look forward to seeing for many, many years to come in this NFC East division, man. It's going to be fun. Now they get to come after this season, when this season does end for them, whether it ends this week, whether they actually go to the Super Bowl, they're going to have a hell of an offseason being able to just continue to build that team up around Jaden Daniels. And look, even though I'm a Giants fan, I look forward to seeing what this team is capable of because I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I think they are here to stay. I think they are going to be a good football team, and it's going to be interesting in the NFC East division. I think the Giants have so much work to do. The Cowboys, you never know what can happen with the Cowboys, but the Eagles, the Commanders. I mean, you're talking about two really, really good football teams in the NFC East. It looks like going forward, man. And Jaden Daniels is going to, who knows, he may just take this division over and take it completely by storm.
Well, Mac, you bring up a good
What is
point.
going on, Greg Cook? Thanks for stopping in.
You bring up a good point. No one's won back-to-back NFC
Yes, sir.
titles for like a decade, right? So maybe the Eagles did it recently. I don't know. I think the Cowboys won last year. The Eagles won this year, but nobody won back-to-back, right? So now you throw another team that's a dark horse in the Commanders, who weren't supposed to win anything. We're supposed to be battling with the Giants for the fourth position in the division. Well, guess what? That's a lock for the Giants next season. The Cowboys, they always do this. They have a bad year, they bounce back. They'll find somebody. They have too much talent on that team to be in a doormat too long. So whoever they bring in, whether that's Mike Zimmer, whether that's I think they're waiting for Kellen Moore, to be honest with you. That's who I think is that. I think they're going to bounce back and be at least, at the very least, third place and maybe another wild card team. But I think you're seeing a changing of the guard. And I think you're seeing something that in JD5 that we haven't seen in a while. Remember, we talked about this Commander team, you and I, on this show in August. Seems like so far away, but in August, we said this team is probably fourth or third best. Hell, people told me in August, 2 wins, chalk them up. We're beating the Commanders. They have a rookie quarterback. We're going to do this. Don't worry about it. Well, here we are, and now the roles have been reversed. And you see a team up and coming who I see Adam Peters, and I don't think he's going to stop rebuilding and getting pieces and getting to the draft. I think he's going to do this season because he's probably going to end up in the late 20s at the worst, probably at worst case 31, best case 32 in the draft. So I think this offseason you're going to see them spend that $100 million in certain areas, backup O linemen, some more defensive players, okay, on the defensive side of the football. Probably help out Luvu and Wagner. Probably a big cornerback position. I know they got Lattimore. I think you're also going to try to add a big-time receiver with Scary Terry out there. Or at least I called him Scorin McLaurin on Sunday. I thought that was a cool name to give him, but nobody laughed at it, so I'll leave it alone. But Scorin McLaurin was out there. I think you need another receiver to kind of help him out. I know De'Ami Brown is making plays, and that's good, but they could use a T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, something like that to really accelerate themselves, and then build that old line depth because they know they lost. I think they lost Sam Kazi and a couple other guys. But hats off to Bobby Johnson, who was a much maligned coach for the New York Giants, who got ran out the building. Okay, for the New York Giants, goes to the Commanders, and all I heard all offseason how bad Bobby Johnson was. The offensive line is going to be terrible. But guess what? They're a strength right now, that team. And they give that kid enough time to do what they got to do. And we're talking about the Lions pass rush with exotic blitzes and certain things they can do. He was able to do certain things. Now, the one thing I will say for Jaden Daniels that he needs to do is just run downhill. Okay. And you realize that if he runs, like he did a lot of dancing when he had the ball, kind of like, I'm like, just get your yards and go down. Don't worry about trying to dance. If you can get the first down, great. If you can't, just go down and live to play another day. Other than that, that's the only minor nitpick I have. Other than that, he's playing fantastic football at a time where you need to play fantastic. And I've never seen a rookie do this. In the history of the game, I've never seen a rookie do this. Be on the precipice, the doorstep of the Super Bowl. The doorstep of the Super Bowl. Was that Marino? Did Marino do that in '83? I don't know if he did that.
Marino went to the Super Bowl his rookie year. Yeah, he went there his rookie year. The only time he went there. And he did not get the W.
But still.
Yeah, like you said, like you said, the fact that this is an opportunity for Jaden Daniels. Like, I mean, look, we talked about the great season that C.J. Stroud had a year ago, and I'm not knocking that by any means. He had a hell of a rookie year as well a season ago. But this is something different. When you watch Jaden Daniels, this guy is something different. This dude, I mean, he looks like a poised veteran on that field, man. He just doesn't make rookie mistakes. He protects the football really, really well. I mean, like I said, you look at this game and see all the turnovers for the Detroit Lions and just watch how Jaden Daniels was protecting that football, not putting the ball in harm's way, and just really making it happen, man. And he's
Jared
been
Goff looked
doing
like the
that
rookie.
all season long. I mean, exactly. That's exactly how it looked. It looked like Jared Goff was the rookie and Jaden Daniels was the vet that's been in the Super Bowl before and all of this other stuff. Like it just, it, I just don't know, man. Like this Washington team, they came out of nowhere this year. Like you said, we were going into this season thinking this team was going to be bottom feeders with the Giants, pretty much competing for third and fourth place in the division, just seeing which one of them could cling on to third place or whatever. And we really honestly disrespected this Washington team in a sense. A lot of people, I
I'm
mean, were
sorry.
just
I
thinking like
apologize,
this team
Commander
was going to
fan.
be, but yeah, this team is a buzzsaw now, and like the thing is, they're not really that loaded. Like you said, they definitely need another receiver opposite Terry McLaurin. And here's the thing about it. They're going to get these guys now. People are going to be all about that Washington life. They're
Oh
going
my
to want
God.
to get there, and they're not going to necessarily have to overpay for people like they used to back in the day where they just had to pretty much throw insane money at people just to get them to come and play and be a part of their team. Now, that's not the same. People are going to want to be a part of this and be a part of what's going on down there, man, in D.C., the nation's capital. And it's good to see good, competent football back in the nation capital. This was a historic franchise from back in the day in the 70s and whatnot. And they've had some really, really, the 2000s have been pretty brutal overall. The
Well, right.
21st century has not been good for Washington Commanders.
Didn't
But
didn't Dan Schneider get the team in 1999 or something like that? And he's been the owner ever since. I do
something like
believe
that,
early to late 90s, and the last 25, 26 years has been an atrocity with what was going on. And I'm glad the owners got together and pushed him out, because Washington, prior to when I was watching football, they were a good, scrappy team, and that's why the NFC East was as strong as it was. You just heard Max say 4 years in a row an NFC East team went to the Super Bowl, right? Um, in the early 90s. And you can't forget that you sprinkle in those Eagle teams that were pretty good as well in that year. They didn't go to the Super Bowl, but they did make the playoffs a couple times, right? So to see what the Commanders have done, it gives you hope that maybe the Giants, if they get their heads out of their ass, can put it together. And we can get to the Giants later on in the show and talk about what may make them come back. But to me, I'm looking at this team and I'm looking at. I just hope they don't do what they did to RG3 to this guy. I think he's going to be better than that. And if they play their cards right, you're having a guy here who, like Max said, you're going to want to be part of this flavor. You're going to be one, and what happens there is when you have that and you have a quarterback that's going to be. We hope that's good for the next 8 to 10 years. Your window never closes. Your window doesn't close. Okay, and I want to take my hat off to Dan Quinn. Okay, a lot of people didn't respect Dan Quinn. Ben Johnson, they went on a plane and turned around. He said, "Screw it." They went with Dan Quinn. Hats off to him, because he never wavered. He never backed down, and he changed the. I hate to say this word; it's so cliched. Culture of this team, and he really brought out a culture of winning. He's been a winning coach. He went to the Super Bowl with Atlanta. He went to the Super Bowl with Seattle. He's done wonders with the Cowboys defense. He was respected, but we didn't want to respect him as Giant fans or anything like that when he decided during the coaching cycle he couldn't get the Giants job, which the Giants wanted him. Imagine if we got him, where would our program be right now instead of being in the dumpsters? And this guy, he has them believing. He brought in an offensive coordinator who I think is going to be the head coach of the New York Giants next year. That or Liam Cohen. Keep those two names in the back of your mind, folks, going into next season. He brought in Cliff Kingsbury, who had familiarity with a mobile quarterback in Arizona. He did wonders with putting Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. He did good things with Kyler Murray, this past year. The year before, I forget where he was last year, but tends to do he tends to do a lot of things with um, quarterbacks. And The one thing that knocked him, and I appreciate him answering the question, is the media asked, "Hey, every year your offense has had a swoon in the second half. What do you do to prevent that?" And he's like, "No, we haven't. I don't know what you're talking about." And he went out there and he's proven like, "Yo, don't step on me. I'm Cliff Kingsbury. I know how to coach offense." And he's out there dialing them up. 13 and he's 3rd and 13. He doesn't care. Throw the ball downfield. Go make a play, De'Ami Brown. Run screenplays. He knew what to do. He's been there, done that, and I'm surprised he hasn't gotten more chances of being a head coach. But we'll see. Who will be the GM if the head coach replaces? Who are you talking about? The Giants? Are you talking about the Giants? No,
I'm
Mets?
not sure.
Because they're both going to be fired regardless who the head coach is, or the GM will be, Joe Shea. Who knows? Who cares at this point? We'll figure it out next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Cohen came in here because Cliff Kingsbury will have more cachet than Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen will look for a job. Cliff Kingsbury will be like, I don't want this. But my point is, hats off to that guy and rectifying his own career and building an offense that put up 45 points against the Lions. 45
Against the number 1 seed team
points.
in the NFC on the road.
I know that they're one fine. If you want to take off 7 points, they scored what? 34 points on the road, 35 points, 36 points, however you want to go. Like they scored a ton of points against a team, like you said, in a hostile environment. In an environment where they were not favored to win, they weren't expected to be there, and there they are. And now
They were the biggest underdogs of the weekend. They were the
and here
biggest
we are.
underdogs of the weekend, and they went out there and handled business.
And this is the biggest turnaround I've ever seen in the NFL.
Like you
You go
said,
from you go from the top 2 team in the draft to the top 4 team in the NFL. Okay, you are a game away from the Super Bowl. Think about this: 4-13 to 12-5 to a
exactly.
chance to go to the Super Bowl. Think about that. Just think about that.
And it's a legitimate chance too. It's a very legitimate chance. This team is going to go into this game Sunday and have no fear of the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. And it's a team they have familiarity with. They split the season series, the 2 games this season. I know people are throwing out there that they didn't really take over that second game until Jalen Hurts got hurt. And that may be true, but the point is they still won that football game. And based on what you saw from this football team,
I have a counterpoint to that. Okay, because sure they lost Jalen Hurts, but did they lose their defensive players? Were they not had that same number 1 defense all year? Did they not execute their plays? I mean, they gave the ball back to the Philadelphia team. They did that field goal, and they gave 2 minutes to go in the game, and JD5 went down on that defense and scored. Okay, so you can say whatever you want about Jalen Hurts. That's fine. I get it. But keep saying that disrespect. You're going to be sitting at home. I'm just telling you. You can tell me all you want, and I'm not trying to fluff up the Commanders and poo-poo the Eagles. We'll get to them in a minute in their game. But to tell me that, well, they lost Jalen Hurts and that's the reason. Yeah, you had it. It's not like you weren't dialing it up. It's not like Tanner McKee wasn't throwing dimes and Pickett hitting guys in stride. Okay, you were still moving the football, and you lost the game because your guys didn't execute in a big spot, and you gave it back to the kid, and the kid didn't waver. Your top 10, your top 4 defense went downfield and scored.
You still had a 2,000-yard rushing rusher in Saquon Barkley on the field as well in that game. It's not like he went anywhere. It's not like he suddenly was out of there. But I mean,
I'm disrespecting
I understand
the Eagles.
that Jalen Hurts is a different class than Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett. But at the end of the day, I think Adam hit some good points here. That defense was still very much on the field and had opportunities to still put a stop to the Commanders' offense in that game, and they just couldn't get it done. Exactly, they couldn't. They just couldn't quite get it done.
But here's the point:
and like you said,
they
injuries
the ball.
are a part of the game. I mean,
they still move the ball back.
Injuries are a part of the game anyway. At the end of the day, to me, I just can't really sit back here and stand on making injuries as an excuse. Look, the Eagles are a good football team. The Commanders are a good football team, and And this is what makes this NFC East matchup, man, so awesome. I mean, how many regular season rematches did we get throughout this postseason, man? A lot. I mean, a lot of regular season rematches, and now we get a trilogy, kind of, so to speak, the rubber match between the Eagles and the Commanders, man, and this one going forward. And this is going to be, like I said, I wish this was the nightcap, was the later game on Sunday, but it's the early game, and it is what it is. I think we're going to get a lot more enjoyment out of this one. I feel like on Sunday than but I don't know, the Chiefs, the Bills. Then again, I guess, what am I talking about? What the hell am I even talking about? We're going to get a great Super Bowl no matter who wins these football games. We're going to get a great fucking Super Bowl, and that's what I'm hyped about, and that's what I'm ecstatic about, man. And
but so let me ask this guy,
Daniels,
Greg.
like I said, we just can't keep pumping this guy up more and more.
Let me ask a question to Greg Cook. Okay, so your guy goes down. Your offense is moving the football regardless of what's happening against a team that they shouldn't be on the field with. Okay, you could ask me, Jaden Daniels goes down. If Marcus Mariota came in there and he was still carving up your defense, that'd probably be even worse than what happened. Well, it's not like you didn't have the number one defense in the league and still statistically ranked. So you could whatever you want and get mad about it. Facts are the facts, man. It is what it is. Like, why are we getting mad because you lost a game that you should have won and could have been the number one seed? It's irrelevant at this point because you're still there. But how are you not putting this on the defense? The defense could have clamped down. That's the whole point of having a team. Is if your guy goes down, we need to step up. They didn't. They got the ball back. They got a turnover. They couldn't score because they dropped the ball. It's not like Kenny Pickett didn't put the ball in Devontae Smith's hand. Okay, he put the ball right in the guy's hand, in his moneymaker, and he missed it. And then you kicked the field goal and didn't stop him going downfield. And you still had Saquon Barkley out there,
I mean,
who was still running over everybody.
You had Saquon. You still got that amazing offensive line. You still had A.J. Brown. You had Devontae Smith. I mean, like you said, you still had talent all over the place, man. I get it. Jaden Daniels has given this Washington team a form of belief. I mean, you got a resurgent, a comeback season. I think Zach Ertz could be a good candidate for like comeback player of the year. I don't know how that's if he'll get a nod for that, but he was definitely a big factor on this football team as well. A great veteran presence. So it's about guys stepping up and making plays. Look, nobody's sitting here debating that. I'm not going to debate that. We know that the Philadelphia Eagles on paper have a better roster than the Washington Commanders on paper overall, top to bottom. But when you got a guy special like Jaden Daniels out there, it just makes a difference.
So to answer your question, I think the Commanders could still move the football because they did with Marcus Mariota the following week. Okay, so don't act like your team didn't have a chance to stop the team. You're saying your excuse is basically saying, well, we lost our guy, so we couldn't do anything. Meanwhile, you had basically your whole team minus your quarterback, and you couldn't get the job done. And so now you're trying to blame not having Jalen Hurts when you move the football. I think you need to answer your question: Is Jalen Hurts as good as he is? Because the last 2 weeks he hasn't been that good. But we'll get into him since you want to talk so much shit about the Eagles and not giving respect to the Commanders. This is what I'm talking about. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's time to move forward. Let's move forward to Sunday, man. Another great game in the snow. I mean, another great game in the snow on Sunday. The Eagles hosting the Rams, and this was definitely a thriller, man. Went right down to the wire, man. And honestly, just like what Adam said, I don't want to sound like some kind of supreme hater, but I'm thinking the weather definitely aided the Eagles in this one. And look, at the end of the day, both teams were playing in the same shitty weather. The Eagles were able to make the most of it and get the job done ultimately. But we saw a lot of miscues from the Rams and definitely weather-related. Puka Nacua, I think, could have had a far more impact on this football game. A guy, a talent like him, if it wasn't for the shitty ass weather, look, the Eagles were able to navigate that better. So hats off to them. I'm not like you said the same thing we just said about with Jaden Daniels and the quarterback, man. Like in Jalen Hurts, I mean, when the quarterback situation, look, there's no excuses, man. Look, and at the end of the day, both teams played in that same shitty ass weather, and the Eagles were able to come out of it clean. But I think most people who can really watch football and kind of understand football a little bit have understanding that this game could have possibly went a different way had it been in some better, more and some better, better weather. But at the same time, maybe the Eagles would have just been even a lot better. So that's what I mean. You never really know, but just based off of what we've seen from the Rams and their offense in particular, I mean, the weather definitely had an impact on this football game. I mean, that snow, it wasn't quite snowing really before it started the game, and then by halftime, the entire field was covered. The entire field was covered with snow. Like, you couldn't hardly see shit out
Well,
there. It was coming down like crazy, man.
It was a classic game in the weather. I do agree with your point about LA kind of shitting the bed a little bit with miscues. They held their own the best they could. The defense came in. They had like 5 sacks. Jared versus all over the place. They made life miserable for the Eagles. If the Eagles don't have 26, it's probably not the same victory. But they had 26 who ran for 205 yards. And when you have a guy do that and basically be a closer in the game, that's what matters, right? And that's what he did. You brought in Saquon Barkley for the moments like this, and he delivered. Um, and to me, this is why you brought him in, Saquon Barkley. This is why you brought that guy in, because you brought him in to do that. Now, mind you, the Eagles played the wild card game. They who they play first? I forget who they play first. Before the Rams. Who was our opening game? Do you remember? Back
Oh,
they played.
hold on, give me one. Let me go back and look.
Okay,
They
because
played.
I don't know. It's eluding me.
They played the Packers. Yeah, the Packers.
So yeah,
Green Bay. Yeah, Green
Okay,
Bay.
so that game was worked right into their favor because they had a banged up team. This team was a little banged up. West Coast flight. I'm not trying to make excuses. They probably should have been better. There was some I think there were some things that the Rams could have done better if they had executed. But again, offensively they sputtered. Defensively they held their own for a while. And then Saquon Barkley breaks your back. That's what he does. And I think it's going to be a different game. I think the road to the Super Bowl for the uh, Philadelphia Eagles is do not give the ball to 26. Jalen Hurts, you paid $250 million to. Great, he could be a passenger on this journey because the way you're going to beat the Chiefs, the way you're going to be able to do what you need to do is by running that football. And I think they don't underestimate the Commanders. And this is the reason why I say this: the Commanders, while they have confidence, are not one. The Eagles won't be overconfident, but two, the Commanders will have confidence knowing, okay, we beat them a few weeks ago. We have a chance to do it again in their building, right? And they're riding high, and that familiarity plays into an underdog team who's won 12 games, almost the same as much as the Eagles. So the Eagles cannot come out and play sloppy like they did against LA. They have to be able to dictate the game and basically get out to the lead, be the attackers, be the aggressors in this. If they get turnovers and Jalen Hurts, throws the ball or fumbles it or does some of the miscues they had that kept them in this game, they will be going home because that Commander team will find a way. And that's what they do. They find ways to win. All right. Like last week, the LA Rams found ways to lose the game, but the moment wasn't big. Stafford had some big throws, but again, they just couldn't quite get over the hump. This week, they can't do that. They will not be able to overcome the mistakes that they need to if the Commanders play flawless because they've played flawless. Right, you give to the coaching staff. Well, guess what? Their offensive line is just as good as yours. They're pretty good offensive line. Not as potent as yours, but they're going to be there. They have Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, and they know what they can do. And they're coming in with confidence. And to me, they cannot. The Eagles cannot turn the ball over. They've got to be more sound. I think they've. I don't know if it's rust, if it's just they playing down to their competition, but they have not played a game where the last 2 weeks where I'm like, man, they are dominant. Right, they're the dominant football team. Like I picked the Eagles to be the best team in football in the NFC conference, and guess what? By attrition, they are. And they need to prove that on Sunday. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting home watching their rivals go up against the Bills or the Chiefs. And I'm telling you right now, this Commander team is riding high. They are it is a team of destiny right now. They what they touch, you know how they say water to wine, and whatever they touch turns to gold. That's what they're on right now. They're on a historic run. And I said it to people now. Now their run could end on Sunday. That defense for the Eagles is pretty good, right? I believe it's pretty good, and they did their job against the Rams the last couple drives to keep their team in the game, which they didn't do against the Commanders a few weeks earlier. This defense got the ball back, forced some turnovers, forced some stops, and allowed Barkley to continue to cook, right? And that's what they're going to do that.
I think coming into this game with the Eagles, man, the Eagles, I think what it comes down to is you got to understand your identity. And you have an identity. The identity of the Philadelphia Eagles team is you got to ride the legs of the guy that got you here. And let's face it, this team is loaded with talent all over the place, but there has been no more impactful talent on this Philadelphia Eagle team this season than Saquon Barkley. I mean, and you got to just don't overthink it. Don't try to get cute. Don't go out there. I feel like, and you just you ride Saquon Barkley, man. I think that gives the Eagles their best chance opportunity in this football game. Don't, like you said, this guy was by far the reason for the Eagles to be able to pull this game out on Sunday. I mean, over 200 yards on the ground out in those conditions. That's what you got them there for, man. That's absolutely what you got them there for. That's a good analogy to an extent too, right there. Second coming of the 07 Giants.
I would say
07 New York Giants team.
They remind me more of the 2011 team without the wild card appearance, because the 2011 team won 11 games. The 2007 team, they were hot. They at the right time. So I guess that parallel works. But I like 2011 because that team won a lot more games, and I think this team is a little bit better than that 07 Giant team. However, who knows what would happen if they played against each other. But to me, they were the hot team. And I newsflash, folks, I'm not picking the Eagles this week again. I've picked the Commanders 3 weeks in a row. I'm not going to stop here. Regardless of how I felt about the Eagles the entire season, I'm going with the hot hand. And sometimes, what the Eagles need to do, don't give any bulletin board material. Praise everybody. Say, hey, you know what? We believe in, Jaden Daniels is the best guy. Blow smoke up their ass. Do not give them any opportunity to believe that they have a chance. You got to do what you got to do here in this game. If you don't, you'll be going home. Now, let's talk about some of the things that could stop the Commanders. That is, they turn the ball over. They don't make any stops. Their defense gives up play after play. That could be their Achilles heel. But sometimes you play hard and the ball bounces your way.
See, I think the big difference in this game is with the Commanders. The thing that makes the Commanders so damn dangerous is they don't make those mistakes. They don't turn the football over with regularity. I mean, you got a quarterback protecting the football. You just have a team that just believes. They just flat out believe. And as long as they're not reading their own press clippings and feeling themselves a little too much, they come in and continue to stay the focused football team that they've been throughout this playoffs. I mean, it's been quite tremendous. I just don't see what's stopping this Commander football team, honestly. I just think they're like you said, that I believe in that team of destiny type of stuff. I believe in that. And right now, this is a team that is just, let's face it, we can say anything we want. The Commanders throughout this postseason have overall played better football than the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles, like I said, I'm not sitting here trying to make a case that Commanders are a better team on paper than the Eagles. They're not. That's flat out. They're not. Eagles are a better football team on paper. I don't think anybody's really going to argue that. But
so
right
on
now,
paper, the
currently,
Eagles. Right. To answer Greg's question, on paper, currently the Eagles look better. Will they? If they? You said if. We don't know if they're going to play their best game because the Eagles have not, as Mac has stated. So, and the Commanders have. The Commanders have played two good football games. Okay, two games where were mistake-free football games. So, it's interesting. It's interesting to see.
absolutely,
I don't.
man. Like,
I don't think they will.
I mean, they do tend to melt down. They do tend to have meltdowns in Philly when they
Well,
lose big playoff games and stuff. So I don't
the
see.
thing will happen. Here's what will happen that will melt them down. Barkley's going for he's got an open field for a run. He gets tapped by a Commander fan who happens to knock the ball out in a crucial moment. The Commanders jump on it, and the Commanders, who were down by 4, now go up by 3 with a few seconds to go in the game, and that's when you'll have a complete and utter meltdown, right? So the thing is that we need to look at how the Commanders are winning. The Commanders aren't winning because they go in there and they say we're better than you. They go in there and they just make sure that they don't make mistakes, and they let you make the mistakes, and then they capitalize on those mistakes and they win games. Have it against Tampa Bay late in the game, okay, and when they get their field goal or Baker Mayfield doesn't convert, and they get the ball back and they kick it in. It happened against the Lions as well, where they had 4 turnovers and they didn't have many turnovers on their end, and they executed and didn't have penalties. If they play that same way, again, they're not intimidated by you. They're not scared. They've been in this building already. I think as a matter of fact, they won in this building already. So they're not going to go in and be like, oh, well, we're terrified of the big bad ferocious Eagles. No, they're not. And that plays a role in how you play, believe it or not. They went in there with house money against Detroit. And they said, what do we got to lose? Why not us, right? Why not? Why not? We made it this far. And that's probably what they're saying in the locker room right now. We made it this far. Why not us? And the Eagles, who, again, I'm just calling facts, haven't played the best games in the last 2 weeks. If they play like that against the Commanders, it will be bye-bye to the Eagles.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like I said, I think the key to this one is going to be the Eagles got, like I said, they just can't come out and try to be too cute. Like I said, to answer your question, you said they both play their best. I mean, clearly, like we've kind of both said, the Eagles on paper are the better team. So if both teams come out there gung ho playing their best football, most likely the Eagles probably will win the football game. If we're speaking can like that. But the thing is, we haven't seen the Eagles playing their best football throughout these first couple weeks of the postseason. I mean, they got the walking wounded Green Bay Packers in a wild card round, and then they had the Rams, who were just, like I said, all kinds of miscues and whatnot in that snow on Sunday, and I think they benefited from that, not taking anything away from them, but they've had some things go their way. They didn't go into like Detroit and do what the Washington Commanders did. They didn't go down to Tampa Bay and do what the Washington Commanders did. And in these throughout, they haven't been as impressive looking. I mean, it just is what it is. And like I said, this Washington team going from not having the number 2 overall pick a season ago to now they may be potentially picking number 31 in the first round. Potentially, this is insane,
or 32. Who knows?
Yeah, or 32. Yeah. So it's just this is just crazy, man. To think about this Washington team, and this is honestly, as a football fan, being a Giants fan, haven't had a lot to really cheer for, and as far as this is just kind of as a football fan in general, this is just exciting to see this Washington Commander team. I'm not taking anything away from the Eagles, though. I don't really. I'm not gonna say it. This is a good football team. If they get some pieces back on defense, N'Kobe Dean was a big app. Was not having him on Sunday definitely did have some impact as well on that defense. Kobe Dean, who's had a tremendous season for the
I am
Philadelphia
picking
Eagles on
Washington.
defense.
I don't want you to bury the lead, no,
And
Mets,
that
but I
was
am picking
a big.
Washington.
Well, how about we get right to it, man? Like, let's make it official. You said you're picking Washington.
Oh, it's official, as Adam Pierce
And
likes to say. I'm assuming you're going to pick.
Yeah, I do agree. Right now, I gotta pick Washington right now just based off of what I've seen. I just think they're
Come
playing
on,
better
we know
football,
you hate. We
and
know
I'm
you
just
hate them.
and I'm just gonna go with that. I mean, I picked them last week against the Rams, but
Well,
at the end of
yes,
the
and
day,
I picked
this
the
Washington team,
Rams,
man.
and I picked the Rams to win. So I don't know what that says. This week I picked the Commanders, and I picked the Commanders against Tampa Bay. I picked the Commanders against the Lions. So no Mets. Why am I going to stop now? I'm going to pick them against the Eagles. I just thought you were going to pick Commanders because you hate the Eagles and you just want to see that you don't want to see them go to the Super Bowl. So that's what I thought your reasoning is. But you gave me the red hot answer. That's what I was not expecting. But hey, if those are your words, that's good.
All right, Greg. I see you serving in the '70s, man. Thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate that. Yeah, those were a lot stronger years for the Commanders / Skins than it was for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I can feel your pain right there. The '70s were also a terrible decade for the New York Giants as well. So we definitely feel your pain on that one, man. Probably not quite as bad as what we're getting from the New York Giants now, as of late, but the '70s were a terrible decade for the New York Giants.
Both decades. And just as a weather update,
Yeah,
Philadelphia will be 40 and cloudy on Sunday, so there'll be no excuses for this team, for either team.
I think the difference in this is the turnover battle too, man. Who can win that? And as based off of what we see, Washington protects the football very well. So don't expect them to be out there just making a lot of mistakes and turning the ball over. I just don't foresee that happening.
I agree
This
with
is
you
going to be a
there.
fun one. I just can't believe this is where we are. Is who who would have thought coming into this
Not us.
season that
Not
we get
us.
all the way through the season to the NFC Championship game, and you'd have a matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Who saw that come? I'm not a gambler. I don't do all the whole betting thing, but I know that the odds on the Commanders being in this position, it had to be, some crazy odds, So anybody that put their money on the Commanders to be in this position, they're in a position to make some nice serious coin right now potentially.
Well, listen,
no way that
whoever
anybody saw this coming.
Whoever that was the Commander fan who put a couple shekels down on the Commanders being in this position, wow, you better cash out now. You better cash out now because you are making bank. And if you decide to roll the dice and say, I want them to get to the Super Bowl and you end up paying out, well, guess what? Good for you. And if you're a Commander fan, I want to say this to you. Be excited. Be excited. Whatever happens on Sunday, you've had a phenomenal year from going from the second overall pick in the NFL draft to being in the late 20s or possibly even 31 or 32, depending on how things go. And damn it, if they win, I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl, regardless of who they play on that next week. If they do, but
Woo!
Right, that you heard it here first. You heard it here first. If they beat the Eagles, I am picking them in the Super Bowl. That is correct. mundo. Now, this could be all for naught, and the Eagles could have their say, but this is what we have to do. Okay, the Eagles and this game, Mac has really truly hit the nail on the head. This is an old school football game. This is what you want as an NFC East fan. You want one of your teams, in this case, two of your teams, to be representing. And in this game here, this is what you wanted. You've got the up and coming Washington Commanders against a team that wants redemption in their Super Bowl loss a couple years ago. And again, going with the facts, if the Commanders do what they did against the Lions, let me tell you, if I'm the Commanders, I am riding high. I just beat the best team in the conference. And now I'm going to play the second best team in the conference. And damn it, we think we are the best team in the conference. So let's go. Let's strap it up. If you're ready to go, if you're not ready for this game at 3:30 on Sunday afternoon, you might as well go, play Parcheesi or Jenga or something, because you're going to miss out on a classic. I believe this is going to be a classic game. I believe this is going to be a fun game. And I believe that if the Washington Commanders win this game, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
So can we officially retire the NFC East title? New York Giants are still bringing their property value down in the division a bit right now.
Well, let's say this. We can call them the NFC.
They can get things together.
I wouldn't say they're the least, because they have two teams in the playoffs. I think the Cowboys are going to be better next year. So do I think they're the best division in football, top to bottom? No. I think that goes to the NFC North. I know they had three representatives in the playoffs. Let's be real. They had the Commanders. They had the Vikings, Packers, and Lions. Now, granted, they're not the last one standing. I'm just saying, having three teams in the playoffs is pretty good right now. The other teams in those divisions, I think the Bears are better than the Giants, and I think that's why I give the edge to the NFC North going forward, because I think you can argue that the three teams at the top of the NFC East can rival the three teams at the top of the NFC North. That last team in the Bears, I feel, is slightly better overall roster-wise and in a better position than the Giants are. That's just how I feel about that. But they're not the NFC East at the moment. Right now, they will be the NFC East representative in the Super Bowl. One of them. Okay? That's what you can be proud of.
Yet again. And no division has had more trips to the Super Bowl than the NFC East. I don't think any divisions had more trips to the Super Bowl than the NFC East. And the damn sure ain't been no division that's won more Super Bowls than the NFC East. So
right.
Shout out
exactly.
to the NFC East. The only division in football where all four teams have hoisted that Lombardi.
Exactly.
And if the Eagles do go and win, the NFC East will then have every team having won multiple Super Bowls. If the Eagles can go and win the Super Bowl. So
you know what?
NFC East, we can crack the jokes, it hasn't.
Let's retire NFC East right now. NFC East, no more. NFC East, no more. If that happens, Mac, and the Eagles win, which would give me another gray hair. But to have multiple teams win multiple Super Bowls across decades, that you can puff your chest out and say, "Yeah, we're the best division in football. Look at our teams. Every single one of them's got Super Bowl ring." I don't even think. Are they the only division that has that in football? I think they're the only division in football.
Only division where all four teams. The only division where all four teams. You got the AFC West. It's got three. The Chiefs, Chargers, and Raiders. The AFC East has three. The Dolphins, Jets, and
the Chargers have won the Super Bowl.
And the Patriots, and then
I mean the Raiders.
Did I say Chargers?
Yes.
I said Raiders. Didn't I say Raiders? I thought I said Raiders.
You said Chargers.
And the AFC East has three teams also.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Keep
I
going.
didn't mean to say Chargers. I meant to say Raiders. Raiders, Chiefs, and Broncos out the AFC West. You got the AFC East with the Dolphins, the Jets, and what the hell? The Patriots. Well, I'm dropping the ball. And then there's one more division We're 3 as well. Oh, the NFC West, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. Other than that, no other division. That's it. Those are the only division that even have 3 of the teams. And the NFC East is the only division that has all 4 of the teams that have won Super Bowls. So, yeah, this is where we are right now. The NFC East, like I said, once again, will be representing the Super Bowl. So all the NFC least jokes, you can throw them out the window right now, man.
Wipe your ass with
The
those
division is
NFC
back,
least jokes.
somewhat cooking,
Wipe
like you said.
your ass with those
Like you
NFC
said, the
least
Bills,
jokes.
the Cowboys, they could come right back out next year and be firing on all cylinders. Once again, the Eagles, you expect the Eagles to still be a very good football team, and we've already talked about we think the Washington Commanders are going to be as well. So just get the Giants, get their act back together, and this division can maybe go back to being the legitimate best division in football if the Giants can get their act together in any way, shape, or form.
And
But
while
yeah,
we're on the subject of the lowly New York Football Giants, um, you know, uh, because we touched on the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to go for running back this year once they get their coach. I think that's what they'll go in the draft. I think they're going to, retool, defensively, offensively. Might be getting another receiver in here. Brandon Cooks didn't really get the job done this year, and I think they're going to build some depth on that line. Maybe invest in a backup quarterback. I don't know. We don't. There's no guarantees in that regard what they're going to do, but speaking of the New York football fucking follies in the New York Giants, um, they have a lot of work to do. And there's rumor now that the Tennessee Titans may go for the best player in the draft. So that may leave you with a quarterback choice. And the Giants can't mess this up. I don't want to hear about them. Oh, well, this guy is not good enough for us, or that guy's not good. You don't have a choice, New York Giants. You have no choice but to pick a quarterback in this draft. Find one that you love and pick him at 3. I don't care if it's Jackson fucking Dart. You pick that guy and you tell
maybe
us, you
even
know
2.
what? Maybe even 2. If you want to take Shador Sanders or Cam Ward and then you want to take Dylan Gabriel at the end, I'm all for it. What I'm not for is you passing on these guys and trying to blow sunshine up my ass, say, these quarterbacks aren't good, and wait till 2026. Guess what? The only way I believe, and this is just me, I know a lot of people disagree, that you save your job in this climate is by drafting a young quarterback. Point blank and period. John Mara will spare you on the football field if you can get a quarterback and show a slight improvement. You know what I mean? And even if that quarterback, even if you win 4 games, guess what? If that quarterback looks like he's doing something, like a Drake May or something like that, guess what? You're winning. You're going to be in the driver's seat.
Look, I just feel like the Giants need to get a couple of quarterbacks in here. Whether you draft 2, whether you draft 1, you bring in a free agent in. The quarterback room needs a complete uplifting for the New York Giants. And I just don't. To me, I don't see a scenario in which you can sell to your fans by passing up on these quarterbacks on a guy. I mean, like I know the reports are coming out. People are trying to scare like a team like the Giants off of like the Shador Sanders and the Cam Wards and saying they're not truly first round talents and all this other craziness. Look, are they are they better than what came out a season ago? No. Giants dropped the ball on that quarterback class a season ago. Dropped the ball completely on that quarterback class. So you backed yourself into a corner where now you gotta take a swing and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work out, then you just try again. Like that's just what it takes. You're relentless. You got to be relentless. You got to go out here and you got to try to make things happen, man. And it starts with the quarterback position. Like I said, Washington laid that blueprint down thoroughly. And now, sure, none of these quarterbacks coming out are Jaden Daniels. Obviously, we all get that. I understand that, but you gotta take your chance because if you don't, it's just I don't see what the future is for this football team. You gotta take a chance. I think the Giants are working the back rooms to have a quarterback fall to them. I don't at this point.
You know what?
Tell me the
I think they will have a chance at one of these guys. Because if you believe, a lot of people don't want to believe what the owner of the Tennessee Titans said. He said, "We're going for a generational talent. We need that." And I'm like, well, why wouldn't they? And this draft, a lot of people are going to like the mid range quarterbacks, the developmental guys. The Giants don't have a chance to pick a developmental one. If they have a chance to move to one, and the Titans want to go to three, and you're afraid because you're afraid you're going to lose Cam Ward to the Browns, then I would definitely trade up with them and go up and get get Cam Ward, because that's what I think might happen. Is the Giants like Cam Ward? They like Shadur Sanders. They get the number. They're going to trade with Tennessee to get the number one overall pick. They have to have good intel, right? Because you don't want to have happen and for all we know, what they could do is what they did with Eli Manning. Like he said, they could draft Shadur Sanders and then trade, you know, Travis Hunter to the Titans in a swap. But what might be easier is if you just trade them. If you know the Browns, who could take Will Howard in the second, take Abdul Carter, pair him with Myles Garrett, right, and bring in Kirk Cousins. They have Will Howard as their developmental guy, backup guy, Kevin Stefanski's offense, and away you go. Meanwhile, the Giants need a quarterback to energize this fan base. And I think that one of these guys, I want Cam Ward. Some people like Shadur Sanders. Either one works for me. Either one of the four or five guys I'm about to mention would work. And Will Howard, Shadur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart. Those four guys to me are guys that should be on the Giants' radar, and they need to get one of them. And if one of these top guys falls to them, fuck drafting BPA. Just get a quarterback and say, that's it. This will be the BPA. Because think about it like this. I don't know what Shadur Sanders is going to do. I don't. I can't guarantee he's going to be great. But what I can guarantee you is that the Giant fan base would have something to root for in a miserable season. The Giant fan base would have someone to look after in the season and someone to hold their hope on. What if he has a year like Caleb Williams, who a lot of people hated when Caleb Williams did? If you look at his numbers, he had 3,200 yards and 20 touchdowns, or 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. I would take that from a rookie. I know they didn't win a lot of games, but I'd take that from a rookie. He got a lot of learning. And I don't want to hear about, well, the Giants can't take a quarterback because the regime's going to be fired next year. Fucking take a guy. Just do it.
You just don't know. Like you said, nothing is, like you said, guaranteed with any of these guys, and that doesn't matter who they are. Nothing is guaranteed. But if you don't take a swing, to me, like you said, that's not a good look for the organization. It's not a good look for the fan base. Like you said, you got to give these fans a reason to have some form of belief. Once again, you just never know. I mean, we heard all off season that about Bo Nix last year. Bo Nix was going to be terrible. He wasn't going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. This guy had his team in the damn playoffs too. He had his team in the postseason as well. Led his team to the postseason, and he was a big reason for that. Now, sure,
probably would be rookie of the year.
Jaden in his playoff game. In a normal year, he would have been rookie of the year. Yeah, in a normal season without Jaden Daniels being around doing the things he's doing, he would have been rookie of the year easily, probably.
Right.
What season that young man had. And all we heard was about how he was going to be this terrible in the NFL. He wasn't going to translate to the NFL. He wasn't going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And yeah, he was the last of those guys that went in the first round a season ago. He was the last one picked out of those guys. But he damn sure played at a higher level than basically all of them. Had everybody else, you know what I mean? So,
well, he played at a higher level than any quarterback the Giants put out there last year. That's, we want to talk about it. He played better than any quarterback the Giants put out there last year. Okay, so yeah, did the playoff game? Was he great? No, against the Bills. He's playing the Buffalo Bills in his first ever playoff game, right? The guy had, is he great? Is he great? We take for granted that guys are rookies. This guy's a rookie. He had 3,700 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. If Jaden Daniels is not there, then you're probably not winning the game. He's probably not winning Rookie of the Year. Okay, if Jaden Daniels doesn't have the season that he has, Bo Nix is probably winning Rookie of the Year because he would be in the playoffs. He would have 3,700 yards and 29 touchdowns for a rookie. We praised Daniel Jones on 24. This guy threw 29. So just keep that in mind, folks, while you're sitting here, doing your thing. Think about it. Just think about that and think about what could have been.
Look at Denver. Denver was not a team that came into this season with high expectations either. They weren't expected to be a postseason team. They weren't expected to have a good year. They weren't expected to be competing in that AFC West division, and they did. And a lot of it had to do with what they got, the effort they got out of Bo Nix, bringing that offense back to life. And once again, they're in a position like Washington where they just got to continue to build around that young quarterback and they can get back to maybe some of their greatness that they've had in the past. I wanted to ask you about, for the Giants' purposes, like another quarterback that haven't really talked about much yet. Quinn Ewers, man. What do you feel about Quinn Ewers, man?
Well, he's not my top 4 for the Giants, but if he's there, he's still going to be a viable option that they need to look into. I mean, if it wasn't for the fumble against Ohio State, right, and I don't blame him for that fumble. I blame the offensive tackle for whiffing on a block, right? That guy clearly whiffed on the block. If he goes down and drives him down there, it might be a different story. I think his stock is going to be a 3rd-round pick. I think he could maybe go higher than that because there are needy teams in the quarterback market. The Giants cannot be fickle here. They can't be like, oh, well, we got Daniel Jones and Jimmy Garoppolo and whatever other bum they bring in here and say we're too good for the quarterback that are in this draft. No. Unfortunately for the Giants, every quarterback that could be a 1st to 3rd round player, even maybe a guy like Will Howard who might be rejected as a 4th rounder, that guy won the Natty. Why am I not talking? Why is he not being talked about? He won the fucking Natty. All we do is talk about people who, do this, do that. But the guy won a national championship. He played well in the playoffs, which is where you earn your money as a quarterback. But yet we want to poo-poo him because he may not be as flashy and dashy as everybody else. Giants have to put Ewers on the table, Dart on the table, Milroe, Ward, all of the top guys that they have to come away with one of them. Maybe even 2 of them, depending on how it works. And Quinn Ewers is in that mix.
I mean, I'm really kind of the more I think about it, I'm really on board with the Giants taking 2 of these quarterbacks in this draft. One at the top of the draft, and then another one maybe even in the 3rd, early as a 3rd rounder. So I mean, I think that's how bad the New York Giants quarterback room has gotten. I think they need to really invest. They need to invest something into that room a little bit more. I mean, I as fans, you can't just go back and watch another year of what we saw. Like I said, even if we would have last year, you didn't take any of the top guys, and then even if you would have took a guy like Spencer Rattler, sure, he didn't have a great rookie season by any means, but he was also a 5th-round draft pick, and he still showed some flashes of decency. You know what I mean? Something still probably I'd still think I'd take him over what we got out of the New York Giants quarterback room as well this season.
Let me ask you this about Spencer Rattler, because since we're on him. If he is here, are you as urgent to try to get a quarterback, or you're like, we can take a guy later on and develop him and let's roll with Spencer Rattler? Would you be a little bit more excited, or would you still be pounding the table for a quarterback?
I'd be a little more comfortable. I don't know if Spencer Rattler will be the end-all, be-all, but at the same time, I definitely wouldn't be on this get 2 quarterbacks kind of thing either. I would definitely be like, maybe, get another guy to come in there and compete and try to have these young guys pushing each other.
Let me play the scenario then. So we bring in a veteran like a Jimmy Garoppolo. We have Spencer Rattler here in the building. Are you, if the Giants are on the clock at 3, are you pounding the table for a quarterback at that moment?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Not the way I am right now.
But this year, no matter who they bring in, minus a Hall of Famer like Matthew Stafford, something like that, you would be pounding the table for a quarterback at 3.
Absolutely. Right now, it's got to be a QB as far as I'm concerned. Like, I know Travis Hunter and all this is like, a nice little flashy pick and all of that, but what's that going to do for this football team right now, honestly? I mean, he's a great young talent. I get it all. I get all of that. But what is that going to do for this team? Is that, like I said, look at Malik Neighbors this past season. He had a great rookie season. Sensational rookie season. What did that do for the New York Giants?
One more win.
And think about it. He had that kind of a season with the quarterback room of the New York Giants. He had that kind of a year with that quarterback room. Just
Tim Boyle threw a touchdown pass.
He caught touchdown passes from Daniel Jones, Tim Boyle, and Drew Lock.
What a trivia question!
This season.
What a trivia question! Who threw touchdown passes to Malik Neighbors his first year? If you name all three quarterbacks, you win. Tim Boyle, Drew Lock, and Daniel Jones. Like, how many players can say that in the NFL? Like, seriously.
Not many. So
this team sucks.
I think this team needs to not overthink it. They need to not overthink it, and they need to go out there and do what they need to do. And it starts with the quarterback position, and then you start, and then you bolster everything else up. But don't fuck it up. You start with the quarterback position. You got to make that happen.
Let's put a caveat here. If the quarterback ends up stinking, fine. We will respect you for taking the quarterback, then not. Take the swing. If the guy ends up friggin' shit in the bed, then we can at least you took a swing. Don't sit there on your hands and draft Travis Hunter and say, I'll get a quarterback in the 4th round and misread it. Because guess what? There are 8 or 9 teams that need quarterbacks that may not pick them in the 1st round this year, but may say, you know what? I've got an Aiden O'Connell. Let me pick a Will Howard. I've got a Kirk Cousins. Let me pick a Twin Ears, right? And meanwhile, you're the Giants who are getting too cute for school to get one. Now, I believe the 3 guys I think and believe that are on their radar 100% are Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart. And I say that about Jackson Dart because sometimes you got to read tea leaves. They have a connection in Eli Manning, who has talked to Jackson Dart, who has been a mentor of his. Don't think they don't use that resource in the building. They're going down to the Senior Bowl where Mike Kafka, barring that he gets hired by the Saints, is going to be the offensive coordinator. They've already requested an interview with Jackson Dart. They've been to a couple of his games. They need to come away with a quarterback at least in the 1st and 2nd round to have me believe that this regime is going to have a chance to stay. Not that I want them to, but their longevity is pertinent on getting a quarterback. If they don't, they will not be here to see their 5th year. If they do, and the team is bad, so let's play the scenario out. They played it out this morning. And the team, because someone said, well, what if you get a quarterback and the quarterback stinks and, everyone's getting fired? So what? Then your quarterback stinks? Like if you drafted a guy and it was Spencer Rattler here and he stunk and you draft him in the 5th round, okay, fine. You can draft another quarterback. But if you get a guy in the 1st round, 2nd round, and you think he's good, next year, whoever you bring in, they're going to try to work with that quarterback. And if the Giants happen to win a couple games with this quarterback, and Brian Dable is out there and he's looked like the quarterback's improved from week 1 to week 18 or week 19, however many games they're going to be playing in the next few years, then John Mara, who I know, I feel is going to say to the fan base and the media, look, I know you guys don't like the result, but I like what these guys have done. I like the quarterback that they drafted here. He showed improvement throughout the year. I don't want to do what I did with Daniel Jones and bring in a new guy and really mess this kid up. I'm going to run it back next year, give him more continuity for year 2, let this guy go in as the unquestioned starter, and we'll go from there. And that's what I believe will happen if the Giants draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds and he plays in the game. Right now, that could all change next year if they get Cliff Kingsbury and one of the quarterbacks comes out and they like him over Shedeur. But these 2 guys, at least the 2 guys, Ward or Shedeur, I don't believe, especially if they take them in the 1st round, that they're going to move off of them next year. But I do believe it's going to save their jobs if they come in and Shedeur Sanders has a game where he throws for 300 yards, they beat the Cowboys, or you know what they're going to do, right? Here's how it's going to work out. Giants are going to beat like these booty ass teams, right? Win 4 games. Then the game down the stretch against the Eagles, meaning nothing. Shador is going to go out there and put on a gem, and he's going to win the game. And John Mara is going to come back and be like, boom, there we go. We got our guy. He beat the Eagles. I'm bringing these guys back. Let's run it back for year 5.
Yeah, I
No, they
mean,
can't.
like you said,
They
that's
can't
what
do
it's
that.
about. Like you just said, I think this is like what you just said is what it's all about. Like it's about seeing legitimate signs of improvement. It still might not be the greatest of results, but like you said, it's like I keep hating to go back to like for instance Bo Nix. Bo Nix didn't get off to like the amazing start to this season. It took a few weeks for him to get his feet really wet and get his legs under him, man. But then he just started showing the improvement week in, week out, and he led their team to the postseason. I mean, and that is what it is. Now, sure, like I said, they went out early in the postseason, but the point is, people didn't have them in the postseason going into this year, and on the back of that young man, they were able to get there.
And I
And
think
it's like it's an example of. Like you need to see legitimate improvement and change going forward. You can't it just even if the results aren't there yet quite there, as long as you see something appears to at least be headed in the right direction, that's what it's all about for this team right now.
and I agree with you. But
Yeah, I
I
do
think
agree with this comment. No Mets.
the best. I mean, yes. Well, listen. I don't care if they draft Dart over Shador. I don't care about that. That doesn't. To me, the name is irrelevant. If he goes on and wins the Super Bowl, that's your guy, right? It doesn't matter to me. You got to bring a quarterback in here. It's bad PR if you pass on Shador and Ward and then draft Dart. But if you draft Dart number 3 and you don't because you didn't like Cam Ward, fine. But don't wait till like the second round and hope to get your guy. Just get whatever guy you deem good and worthy there. Now, what I want to say is, I think what will happen is if you have a guy like Drake May, who I think is a better example, I don't think is a better example, but might be an example that you want to look at because that team was bad, but you know that Drake May can play in the few games that he got in this season, right? I know he got injured in the last couple and he was out, but you got to see him play. And now the Patriots, who have a new coaching staff, say, "Oh, I have Drake May." Away they go. Right now they can draft whoever they want at the in the number 4 position with Mike Vrabel. They can build an offense around him, and boom, away they go. But they had to draft Drake May to get there. The Giants have to draft a quarterback and show improvement at the end of the year. Or even if I mean, like Jalen Milroe, right? He'll be considered as well. Like all the Giants cannot turn a blind eye to anybody in my eyes that we talked about. All the top guys. And if they have to reach for the quarterback, fine, you reach for the quarterback. But if he wins you a championship, no one's going to care that you reached in the second round or you reached in the first round. Did anybody care about Eli Manning with all the assets we gave up? How'd that work out for us? He gave us a Lombardi. Meanwhile, we drafted Daniel Jones and kept that guy
Yep,
for 6 years
two of them.
after ass season, we kept that guy. We didn't even take a swing. Even in the Eli Manning era, we brought in Ryan Nassib, we brought in Davis Webb, we brought in Kyle Aletta, we brought in guys here to possibly be the heir apparent to Eli Manning. We didn't even do that with Daniel Jones. And to me, the Giants brought in 4 quarterbacks last year in the offseason in April. They brought in Nathan Rourke, whose brother is Curtis Rourke, who may or may not play this year, but he might be drafted. You have Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Dan Jones. Okay, 4 guys. You're going to need to bring at least 3, and you're not telling me that you're signing 2 veterans. You're not going to do that. You'll probably sign a Jimmy G and maybe a Tommy D, and then go in with a rookie. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but it sounded cool. Right? You bring in your rookie, whomever that may be. Now that rookie is going to be the franchise guy that they're going to try to build around. And knowing John Mara and the loyalty he gives to his guys, he is not going to throw this guy out with the bathwater, regardless of who comes in next year, as long as this guy shows improvement. And if it's Jackson Dart and he's out playing Shador Sanders in the Raiders, he's going to look like a genius. Just get a guy in here that we can have some hope with. I don't want to draft the 7th round pick and say, well, excuse me, we couldn't get any of these guys, so we're settling on this 7th-round pick. That's what I don't want to see. What I need them to do is invest in a first or second round pick.
And that's what I mean. Like that's like what this team, like, look at the Patriots from a season ago. He took Drake May, number 3 overall. And then they followed that up later in the draft with the 6th round or so. I think it was the 6th round. They drafted Joe Milton, who you got to see in that last game of the season. Like also, a solid young talent. Now, granted, Drake May's job is not in any jeopardy right now, but at the end of the day, they have a couple of young guys in there, and what we saw from Joe Milton in that final season, in that final game of the regular season, is that this kid can play in this league. I mean, sure, it was the last game, didn't mean much, but this kid demonstrated an ability to play in this league as well. Late round draft pick.
Well, who didn't it mean much for?
Got 2 young guys.
Because it meant a lot to him.
Say that again.
You said it didn't mean
meant
much,
a whole
right?
lot.
It meant a lot.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, yeah, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying, right?
Hypothetical, like it. But he went out there and he gave it his absolute best. He went out there and he wanted to show the league what he can do. I mean, I think he knows his situation. He understands that this team took Drake May, number 3 overall. Drake May is their starting quarterback, but he's putting people on notice that, look, I can play in this league too, man. If things start going left, you can throw me back out there, man, and I'm capable of getting things done.
And one thing we should also mention is maybe that guy's a valuable asset in a trade. Like a team needs a quarterback. Obviously, Milton's not going to start because Drake May is there. And as much as you need a backup quarterback to be good, maybe you say, you know what, I can parlay this into a 4th-round pick. I can parlay this into something else and get some assets for him. So what people need to realize is that having an abundance of something is a good thing. It doesn't necessarily, like we had an abundance of pass rushers. Guess what? O.C. Umenyiora goes down, we put in Matthias Kiwanuka. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't miss a beat defensively. So, my point is that would you redraft Knicks over May? No. Knicks probably still goes last, but he probably goes a little higher because a team like the Giants might take him, right? Penix Jr., he came in the bottom of the half of the year. He played a couple games, and he looked good. Okay? And now your future is bright in Atlanta. And that team brought in Kirk Cousins. So what was their excuse? Why did they draft a quarterback? They didn't technically need one, but they brought one in because they know Kirk Cousins may not be the future there. So for me, the Giants they have no quarterbacks on the roster as of right now. I mean, you could say technically Tommy DeVito is a restricted free agent, but that guy's got to sign his tenure. And for all we know, he could be out of the building and say, you know what, I want to start somewhere else. But most likely he's going to probably be here and be the bridge quarterback or some shit. But what you want to do is you want to bring in a guy like Jimmy G. You want to bring in a guy like Shedeur, Cam, Dart, Howard, you name it. Insert one of these top guys in here, and it breathes hope for me. Because as much as I want to watch Jimmy G, I'll be like, at least we have a quarterback in here that when it goes south, and a lot of people think the season's going to be bad next year. I do. And if the Giants are 0-4 with a rookie quarterback that hasn't started yet, well, guess what? Put the rookie quarterback in and ride on the rest of those games. Get him that experience. You know what I mean? See what he can do. And that's how I think he saves their job. That's what I believe. If he doesn't come in early, he'll come in later when they're 0-8. You're going to see him at some point. Look at Joe Milton. He came in, didn't get any of the snaps all year, came in and had a solid game where you're like, oh, maybe they have a solid backup here at least, and a guy who can come in here and hold the fort down if our guy gets injured for a decent period of time. You can't say that with the Giants. Exactly. The Giants are desperate. It's all because you got caught looking.
Look what we saw.
Taking that swing.
I mean, what we saw from Joe Milton in that final game was, even though it was only the one game, it was still probably better than what we saw from Giant quarterbacks all season. Other than that, I guess that Colts game with Drew Lock, playing. I mean, other than that.
I mean, think about that. You said other than that game,
just,
right? This guy comes in, plays the last game of the year, and has a solid game. We had to wait 10 weeks for Drew Lock to even play that good in the season, right? He comes in his first game, and looks better than him.
Exactly.
This team sucks.
So, this is where we are, man. Unfortunately, based off of what we kind of seem to know, this New York Giants team is going to have a rough year next year. I don't want to see like people making ridiculous predictions of what this team is going to be in the offseason. I don't want to see 11 and 12 game predictions. This team is playing the NFC North next year. This whole division is playing the NFC North next year. So let's keep that in perspective as far as the schedule is going to be brutal. So, like I said, it's going to be a long year. All we can hope for is you make some good moves in the offseason. You draft, get a couple of quarterbacks in here. Like I said, you draft a guy, pick up a guy, draft two guys. Whatever you do, you get something in here. You really focus on that QB room, and that's where it starts. Like I said, that's where it needs to start. And then let everything else start to fall into place. That's where it started with the Washington Commanders. It started by upgrading that quarterback room by simply acquiring Jaden Daniels. And everything else kind of fell into place. And then, like I said, this is a team that just believes in themselves. So the New York Giants, a blueprint has been laid out for you. Kind of just follow that, man, and try to make that work for you as well. You've got a stud receiver. You got a pretty solid young running back in Tyrone Tracy, who I like to think can only get a little better. I mean, you had a great rookie class. Let's face it. As bad as this New York Giant team was, an excellent rookie class this season. Theo Johnson was really starting to hit his stride a little bit as well before he went down at tight end. So, I mean, there are some pieces to grow on and build with this football team. It's just a matter of getting a quarterback in there that we can believe in. Somebody that gives, like you said, you've been saying the H word, hope. That's what this fan base needs now. It needs hope. So, I mean, that's really all I got. I'm dead right now.
I'm good as well. So, but, I know you're feeling sick, so I think let's wrap it up so you can get some sleep and get some soup in you. And
I do hear you, no Mets. I agree, but it's a copycat league, and sometimes you just gotta, sometimes when there's a model out there, man, you gotta just that's proven to work. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta piggyback off of that. I'm not saying do exactly what they did, but
those teams did.
Just saying.
They took a quarterback. That's the model we have to follow. They took a quarterback. They took swings. So you may not say it's a model that works. Well, how about they took a swing? How about Kansas City took a swing on Mahomes? Okay, the Patriots took a swing on Drake May. Washington with Daniels. Caleb Williams. Don't be afraid to take the goddamn swing. That's what we need. We can't, you want to sit here and talk about models.
And the Broncos moved up, traded up, and took Bo Nix.
and the Vikings got J.J. McCarthy. And the Falcons took a quarterback when they had one on the roster. So the blueprint is take a guy because we don't have a guy and we need a guy. So take a swing. And if he's not the guy, don't sit there for 5 years waiting to find out. Go get another guy.
Exactly. Look at the Cardinals. Look at Josh Rosen. They took him first round one season. The very next season, didn't hesitate to take Kyler. I'm trying to say his name. Kyler Murphy. Murray, whatever. They didn't hesitate to take him number 1 overall. Didn't hesitate. Didn't say, we took Josh Rosen last year, so we're just gonna try to run it back with him and see what he can do. No. They realized this guy is not it, and they went on ahead and the very next season invested 2 invested a first-round pick and a quarterback 2 years back-to-back. And granted, they haven't had amazing success, but they've been a formidable team. They had a solid year this season. They didn't quite, get over that hump and get into the postseason, but they were a solid football team most of the year. So you got to take the swing. Like Adam said, he's been saying, like I've been saying, you got to take the swing. You got to at least try. If you're not trying, then what are we even doing, man? And thank you, No Mets, man. I'm going to try and get some soup in me or something and try to knock some of this congestion out, throw some Vicks on my chest or something, rub some Vicks paper rub on the chest, man. But definitely appreciate everybody tuning in for another edition of The Real Deal NFC East Roundup. NFC East team will be going to the Super Bowl, so we'll be with y'all all the way to the Super Bowl, man. And it's going to be a fun ride. I don't know how the next week's show will probably be a little something different, be more just talking about the teams in general. Talk about the NFC East championship game, but we'll just be talking about these teams in general. Maybe do some fun stuff. We'll figure some stuff out, do some fun things.
We might have some trivia of the teams,
some awards,
things like that.
Yeah, some stuff like that. So we'll be back with y'all next week, man. At next Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, man. It's your boy, Mac the Giants fan, and this is my guy, the super dope co-host, Adam Costas. And we'll see y'all next Wednesday. Peace!
I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you was feeling this, please take time to subscribe and smack them likes. Feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you think. Don't forget to ring that bell so you know when I'm dropping new content. It's your boy, Mac the Giants fan. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Mac the Giants fan. That's MACDA Giants fan.